Well, of course, things have been off the charts busy around here, and I have a summer head cold. That's that's not cool. Like, just I don't know, right? Like colds are for the winter time, and then it just attacks you, and you can't do anything about it. It's not cool. This is cool. This is a Porsche 914. For those of you that don't know what a Porsche 914 looks like, this is a car that was invented in the 1970s at the behest and request of my beloved brand Volkswagen by my beloved brand Porsche. And the reason for the 914 was that Volkswagen wanted a sports car, and the reason for Porsche's involvement was Volkswagen always got Porsche involved. It was like their favorite thing to do. And so the Porsche 914 exists. That's kind of a elemental design, if you will, of having a mid-engine, rear transaxle car that just is a delight to drive. Very low center of gravity. Absolutely one of the driver's cars of legend that exist in the marketplace. So everybody loves a 914. This one is an Irish green, not originally from the factory. Originally from the factory, it was a yellow. But Irish green suits it. It's actually a very handsome car in Irish green. It's got a tan interior for the most part. Sorry about my cold. Can't do much about that though. But I can do a lot about this. So this puppy needs rear control arms badly. It's also going to get front struts. It's also going to get jetted for altitude because it's going way up there. Not really. It's going medium level. It's going to the mountains for the driving season. It's going to be hanging out in New Mexico. So we're getting this puppy all outfitted and set up for altitude. We're getting new rear control arms put on there that are reinforced because it had a little curb slide incident in its history. Don't ask, don't tell. And I guess I did tell, didn't I? Don't ask. Don't ask. And the owner said, hey, let's get it set up. Let's get it out there. Let's have a heck of a fun driving season with it. So Patrick Motorsport has hooked me up with, hey, shout out to Patrick Motorsport, y'all rock. Hooked me up with their reinforced rear control arms that have been completely rebuilt and done up beautifully. I'll show you those. I'm very excited to install those onto this vehicle. And they're boxed, they're reinforced, and if this thing ever gets thrown around again and maybe chance encounter with a object to the rim, let's say, a little bit of a curb slide, if you will, it won't be a problem for it in the future. It's going to be reinforced. It's going to be happy. All right, let's get to it. Now here's the deal. You always break Porsche lug nuts by hand because these lug nuts are incredibly light, at least if they're on Fuchs alloy wheels, and at least if they look like this. Because this lug nut is not your average lug nut. This is titanium, and it's super, super light. And the knockoff ones are aluminum, and they're super, super light, but not as strong. So you don't want to mess with this sucker with spinning it off of there with an impact. You will just twist it. And by twist it, I mean literally twist it. Like you will see the twist in the body of the lug nut itself, and it'll be destroyed. So these guys always untorque by hand, retorque by hand. Any wheel lug nut you should retorque by hand. Don't trust those torque sticks and all that stuff. Come on, people. We know better than that. A little manual labor never hurt anybody, right? I think. Other side. Let's go home. No, I'm just kidding. No, but for real, let's go home. I'm done. No, I'm just kidding. Back to the other side. a little clip down here for the e-brake. That little guy. Oh, you know what? I think I still have that engaged. Why you gotta ruin my fun? Car. Well, would you look at that? I don't even need to complete my sentence. I'll take you there. Oh, I'm so curious. I mean, it was curb slidden. Curb slided, did? Curb slid. Anyway, this rotor's in nice shape. Full width and everything. So, check that out. It's good stuff, right? That's pretty. That down by my coffee. Coffee break. All right. Is that socket too deep for that? Probably. Because it's a deep socket. Yeah. Anger. Anger chicken, right, Addie? Well, its stud's not out all the way, and it's also not in all the way. Now it's out all the way. Look at that. It just gave up. That hole is not quite small enough, and the stud is not quite big enough. We'll press another one of these in. That'll be part of our task today. Let me continue on with this process. We're gonna use the impact on that. This side's all torn up, so I don't want to just go ahead and wrench on that because it'll just dent this side, in case you're wondering why I was fighting with it like an imbecile. So I suppose I could put a bolt back in here. That would be smart. Let's do that. And then I can do it all by hand. We'll just rock a caliper bolt again. You know, there are some days where, despite my best efforts, my mind just doesn't let me think. I hate this thing. It's dumb. It's quite clever, actually. Here's where it's broken. And that almost cut me, too, because, well, the obvious, fingers and metal. And, yeah. So thanks for that, Porsche. I always have fun doing this, but I don't have nearly as much fun doing this when you guys aren't around. Oh, no. I bent my favorite screwdriver. Bend it back in the vise later. It's bendy. All right. Now, we got to cut the axle free. Rear sway bar, shock absorber. And then we can take some of this other stuff off and drop this out of here. Working through the diagram in my head again. So yeah. Then we can take the hub out, and then we can take control arm all down and off of there and all that stuff. So carry on, my wayward son. So here's the thing. Because I'm sick, I'm, blowing my nose in a mess of life. And I haven't been doing a ton of camera work past taking the wheel off and some of that stuff. I got the axle cut free. The shock absorber, sway bar end link is off. Shock absorber's disconnected, all that stuff. So yeah, we're just throwing this together quick. But there's some bolts up under here, and I'm going to cut those free. And that'll allow this to drop down. Uno of the bolts. Dos. Oh, well, appears to be staying in place reasonably well. I think that's a fallacy, though. I'm gonna grab some gloves. Let's find out. should be coming out of here, but it's broken. There we go. Out and down. All right. Over here is where all the damage occurred. So, anyway. Well, there you have it. It's out. It's heavy. And I still gotta press the axle out, the stub axle, and then it'll be joy. Do a wheel bearing, some other stuff. It'll be a good time. I felt better, you know? Felt better. Colds, they're no fun, man. They're no fun. Now then, this is the beautiful new part from Patrick Motorsport. It's reinforced and gusseted, and it has a tow hook welded onto it, and it's fully powder coated, and it's hot looking. Before I put the bearings in, though, this is where the wheel bearing goes, into this area. Before I put the bearings in, I've got to scrape off some of the powder coat that bled around the inside of the edge there, because if I don't do that, then the wheel bearings are going to snag and hang up on it, even as low as down here. You can see there's some powder coat that got in down there. So I've got to also take it off this edge completely, because as the wheel bearings snug in, if they roll this edge at all and they pull it in, then that's just going to be a jam up on the bearings. So I'm going to sit down with a little emery paper and a razor blade and chip and scrape and sand all that off there. And then we'll get to putting the wheel bearings in and putting this puppy all together to put back on the car. Now you can see I've removed the powder coat from around the edge. There's a nice chamfer on it. And we're in good shape for installing the bearings. Okay, so recover our bearing from the refrigerator. Freezer, actually. It's made in Italia, and it's not directional or anything. What I like to do is give it some squirts of motor oil around here. It's just going to help it on its journey. And we really want it to be a happy journey. I should have brought some rags over here. Never mind, I got rags over here. Beautiful. You're beautiful people. I appreciate you watching this. Even though I'm sick. All right. Lick your tongue, stick it on there, or stick your tongue on there, lick it, whatever. Now here's the thing. These bearings are very tight. You're not going to want to go in here very easily unless you give it about a week and a half in the freezer. I pre-ordered these before the car even got here. They've been in the freezer for a long time. And that's why it went in so dang easy. Ordinarily, it would hate me. I'd be tapping and pounding and whatever. You know, this, I even got this little aluminum deal out to drive it down in there. But give it enough time in the deep freeze, and you'll be all right. Now, the other reason I put oil around there is because it's been so long in the deep freeze, I don't want that sucker rusting in there. So now that it's in there, there's going to be some moisture and everything, but there's oil all the way around there as well, and it'll be happy. And you can use anti-seize, but that can build up and actually have thickness and scrape away as it goes down in there. So a little bit of motor oil, nice and thin. Put it down in there. Now we got to put the bearing cap on, and bearing cap, bearing cover, however you want to call it. And the inside of this now is going to be on the tight side for inserting the axle through. So I'll let this all come to room temperature before I put the axle stub back through there. Because otherwise that's going to be shrunk down and it's going to be extra tight to get the axle stub down in there. And you don't want to warm it because, well, it's a bearing and this is a sealed bearing, and so it's got its grease on the inside and everything like that. So now you know as much as I know about that. That was a lot of sharing. Got the Torquois wrench. Got a beautifully powder-coated bearing cover. It's going to go right on there. If there were any stampings on this, I might... Ooh, there's a little burr on there. I don't like that. Never mind what I said. It's not beautiful. It's got a burr. I'm going to deburr that really quick. All my deburring tools are pretty much garbage. They just broke. They're made by this manufacturer that sometimes makes garbage that just breaks, even though they charge you a lot of money. So, you know who you are. Manufacturer of tools. But sometimes they make really great stuff, and I have a lot of their stuff that I like too, so... Actually, they didn't make this, they just put their name on it, which is where part of the problem is. Anyway, I'm going to deburr all this stuff while I hate on large corporations for their extortion of independent mechanics, even though they're supplying them with really good quality tools for the most part. Sometimes the handles break on their deburring tools because they're cheap, except for they're not cheap because they charge so much money for them. Anyway, the deburring is going well. I have completed the deburring, so I'll stop griping about that. It worked, didn't it? And now, let's go ahead and put this bearing cap on. We've got the Torquois wrench. Ever so important. We're going to set it to 18 foot-pounds, which is what the factory said these bolts should have. And that's what the factory bolts shall get. I already thread chased these threads to make sure they were clear of powder coat. Thread them up my finger, make sure we're in happy situation. Now there's no need for any thread prep on these. These are fine. They don't need one way or another, no Loctite. They don't also need any sort of anti-seize or anything like that. They're just going to be happy the way they are. If only we were all like that. Existential questions while working on a 914. Hey now, don't go taking off on me. So there we go. Just the littlest, mightiest bit of Torquois on all of the bolts. And it's happy. There you go. Bearing installed. Control arm almost installed. All right, so the next step in all of this is going to be installing the through bolt, pivot bolt for the arm, and installing the bushings. They're going to be tight. It's going to be fun. And then the next part of all of that would be installing the hub onto this puppy. But like I said, I got to wait for that to get to room temp, and that's going to take a moment here. So I'm going to work on installing this part of things, and then when that's at room temp, we'll get the hub pressed back into there. And then this one will be done and installable, except for the lug studs, which I've got coming in because a couple of them were kind of jacked up on the threads. So this will get installed on, and then I'll start on the passenger side, tear it all down, and do the exact same thing over there. And still got the head cold, so I don't know how much of that'll show, but you know, we'll just work through this process together. And then we get into test driving, which is going to be a whole lot of fun. Couple of things I've done. I have pressed in the Delrin bushings on both sides, and I had to hone them for the pivot shaft, which was fun. That was a job. Also, the facing surface of only this bushing had to be leveled a little bit because there's knurling. I'm going to bring this over so you guys can see what I'm talking about. There's knurling on the pivot shaft, and that needs to stand just proud of the Delrin material, because this material is not soft like the rubber. So the rubber would compress and allow that knurling to bite into the body, right? But the Delrin material will not do that, so It's kind of hard to tell, but I've got it so it's just above the surface. I mean, we're talking like, you know, tenths of an inch. Still have a head cold. Bear with me. I've got my Johnny Cash voice going. I won't sing for you. It's okay. But it's my low note. Low. Yeah, you get it. Okay, so with that in place, and you've got to make it so this pivot shaft will actually pivot in here. So I had to hone the inside of the Delrin bushing just on this one bushing. This one bushing is the only one that fought. This bushing on this side was great. Slid right in. In fact, it would probably slide right out if I got a little plastic pry bar or something under it. It would just right out of there. So that bushing was great. This one fought me. Hopefully the other side doesn't fight as much. But now is the winter of our discontent, and a glorious summer by the son of yore. Is the time that, sorry, just a little light Shakespeare, is the time that we press in the hub. I had to get all new lug studs for the hub. I had to get all new lug studs for the hub and press all of those puppies out. It wasn't that hard. As you saw, the one was wiggling already. So I pressed all of those out. I pressed all new lug studs in, and the hub is going to drop into this bearing. Well, that's a press kind of a situation. So what I do is I've got a nice washer and a bolt. I've got my normal aluminum press for seals and bearings and all kinds of different things, right? Slide that through that, and up and back of this, where you can see in here, you can put this up and through, and it will act as a support. It's providing support to that bearing up in there, only on the inner race. You don't really need to worry much about the outer race, but you see that inner race there? And then when this pulls into place, it provides support against that inner race. All right, so with that in place, the hub will slide over and center up. And then with a kind of larger washer or this plate on the middle of the hub, whatever I've got space for, and then thread down on top of there. I'll grease up these threads a little bit. And then you can crank on that. You can hold that other bolt from the underside with a socket if you need to turn it sideways on the bench, whatever, and pull the hub into place in a way that's very gentle on that bearing. You don't want to just go pressing that hub down on this bearing that is made to be compressed from both sides in order to attain its proper amount of play. The load forces in these bearings very sensitive, and if you stress a wheel bearing in the wrong way, you'll just screw it up right from the start. It'll never run true, it'll grind, it'll make noise. The first thing I'm going to do is spread some engine oil around the inside of this. Now, one of the reasons that I put the engine oil around the inside of this is also because that hub has been in the freezer and it's going to create condensation as it begins to come to temperature, right? So if we don't put any oil on the inside of this, that condensation is just going to be metal to metal, and it could cause rust, which would mean the next guy to try and press the hub out is going to be very unhappy. So we have one very cold hub. We've got motor oil around there. I'm going to put a little engine oil on here. Very cold. I also got some, just before I went over to the freezer, I got some sockets prepared. And we just want to try and drop this in as square as possible, and then we're going to pull it in with the pulling setup. So now it's not going to look very square because the piece is at an angle. I'm okay with that. Ooh, look, it dropped in a little bit. That's what we wanted. I wanted the iced cold nature of it to drop it in just a little bit. So now we're in there a little, just a bit, just a wee. We're going to install this up and through. And with one hand in there, one hand out of there, put my big washer over it, my little washer over it. Really should have grease on this. Forgot to grease it. That's okay, because now it's in there. So we get Old dab of some grease, the musical, on these threads. You don't have to grease these threads, but because this is not an actual press or any sort of thing, it's just some threads. They're cut by whoever they're cut by, and they're not going to be as friendly, and so greasing them up is going to make them happy in this operation. And as before mentioned, happiness is the goal. I mean, you know, and living an examined life and enjoying what you do for a living. And I certainly do that. I enjoy this. It's a lot of fun, despite what that would make you think. Lots of fun. This is going really smoothly because I chilled it in the freezer. So it's chill, man, which I do recommend because it makes the operation go nice and smooth like this. And that's what you want. What you want is for it to go smoothly. And now we're nice and pressed down in there. And it was that simple. That's how we done and did it. Done diddly did it. Happy about it. Pleased with myself. Pleased as punch. Punch with myself, punch as pleased. Pontius Pilate? I don't know. Free association games. All right, here we go. It spins. It doesn't really spin, right? Because I've got a little metal piece up in there. I can hoist it from here. So it's not really going to want to spin around in there because I got my metal die down in there. Die, you piece of metal. Metal die. All right, it's going to be one of those days. I never really know until I get into it. Just going to loosen it up here. I should make sure it's seated all the way. It definitely is. Drop our little tool out of here. I'm excited to take you guys for a test drive in this 914. This one's fun. This is a fun one. I'm very excited that I replaced those lug studs that were on it. Those were not good. And now they are good. Boom. That's out of there. That is also out of there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to paint the inner side of this hub with a little penetrating oil because no one prepped it before. And before I go sliding the axle stub up in there with the axle on it and everything, I want this to be nice and prepped so that everything moves smoothly. And I'm not going to sit there with a file and scrape out a million different little, splines. So a little penetrating oil, I'll probably soak a rag with it, just kind of plug the rag down in there so that it can sit. And that's a trick that you guys can use at home if you ever need to clean an inner bore of something. Use a nice rust reversal or a penetrating oil or something like that. I'm going to use penetrating oil because I'm going to later on put a little grease on these splines when I'm putting it all back together so that the next guy doesn't have to fight as hard as I had to fight to get it out. And so, the next guy's probably going to be me, let's face it. But because of these bushings, this is a lifetime, these bushings are a lifetime setup on this car. These will never have to be replaced. This plastic is good for the rest of the vehicle's life and time. So that's the nice thing about this Delrin plastic. It's also like self-oiling and all that. It's got plenty of grease on it. I put synthetic grease on it and all that stuff. Good old super lube and the superest of lubrication for your lubricating needs in a super way. And this is it. It's ready to go. There you go. New wheel bearing, new hub. Happiness. It's a good way to start the day. It's the start of the day for me. I don't know where you're at in your day, but that's where I'm at in my day today. I'm gonna go make myself some coffee while this soaks, and I'm gonna start on the pivot shaft for the driver's side control arm and get the Delrin bushings all squared away with that while all this soaks up. And then, oh boy, we get to install it back on to this lovely Irish green 914. It's fun when they're green because then you get to say green 914 and it just feels more fun than saying yellow 914. You feel me? All right, gonna let that soak, let those splines shed some rust. We'll pull it out in a bit. I'll even spray some of this down in here. Should have done that to start with. Whee! Hang on a second. Before you get angry at me, I know I put it together without you. In this particular case, I had to be time efficient. I had to be speedy. There were a bunch of intricate things that went wrong and were hard to get camera angles on to show you guys the process of fixing, correcting. Look, there was just a lot. It was one of those jobs that didn't go according to plan exactly, and I fast realized that I couldn't just video everything and tell a whole story about this particular car. But we got there, right? Wheels are on. It's awesome. It's back together. Control arms are in. And at the end of the day, I mean, you were just going to see me bolt up some control arms. Most of the stuff that I've already showed you to this point, that's the interesting stuff. And now it's all back together. And we get to test drive soon. As promised, we're going to take the 914 for a test drive. It's all back together. The only thing I haven't done yet is adjust the jets for altitude because this car is going straight from Chicagoland down to El Paso, Texas, where the owner will enjoy driving it around El Paso for the rest of the summer. So I'll adjust the jetting and the carburetors for about 4,000 feet from where we're at, which is about 700, I think, feet-ish above sea level. So basically zero. So we're going from 0 to 4,000. I want to test drive it first before I trade out those jets so that the only thing that I'm doing at the very end of this is trading out those jets. The rest of the tune, the mixture adjustments, all of that, they may need to be tweaked by, the owner or by a shop down that way, but I can't adjust those because I'm not actually at that altitude. So all I can do is test drive it the way it is now, change those jets out, make sure that it's happy with the new jetting it's going to run on the richer side, and away it will go. But let's hop in this thing and take it for a spin. This is a car that doesn't perform well from a dig. It's not about that. This is a low center of gravity, mid-engine car. This is all about the corners. We've got a few corners around this area to test drive through, so let's have at it.